Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
Do it live.
Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
Welcome to Wired Axcess Podcast, where I'm your host, DJ K-Dub Omaha. Of course, we have a little different here. We're both remote. Today, our guest is part of the NSAA State Associates, right? Ron Higdon, but also I know you're also a former UNO All-American Wrestling. And the reason I bring that up is because I just think backgrounds are so important for leading the future of sports, especially in a state. And when you have a connection, welcome to the show, Ron. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
So, Ron, I brought you on. I've had your associate Jeff Johnson on before he actually joined the state. He was actually the College of St. Mary's athletic director. He was my kids' former athletic director. So he put me through with you because last year I had the luxury to DJ state softball, which was for the first time played at UNO. I believe there was over 4,000 fans. We had Class A, Class B, and Class C. And just the atmosphere alone, and I think not only that state tournament, but just the state tournament in general is starting to really ramp up for these athletes. They're getting more exposure, they're getting more atmosphere, and they're getting more opportunities. So first of all, I want to say thank you for joining our show to kind of talk about state softball, which is this upcoming week on Monday, back at UNO on the 21st. And then also kind of maybe a little bit of your history in sports and kind of how you developed to who you are today and why you chose to come back and work at the level that you are. To give back to younger athletes. I think it's very important to understand that you just not only have one sport, and I think do you guys change sports throughout the year, like one year to the next of what you're the director of?
Not typically. We usually keep the sports that we're in charge of unless we have a change in personnel. And then we kind of see what fits who for the new person coming in. And obviously every one of us has background in some sort of sports, but then we don't have enough directors to have background in every one of the activities that we provide. So we kind of cater to the background. My background is in wrestling, so obviously that was a natural fit to have wrestling. But then through the years, since we've changed directors, I've also been in charge of softball at an earlier time before I just took it over last year. I've been in charge of cross country. I have boys and girls tennis, soccer, and now we have girls wrestling and dual wrestling as well. So all of those are the things that I've been in charge of through my years. This is my 14th year at the NSAA. And to kind of answer your questions in order, first of all, the softball in particular is growing nationwide, the popularity of the sport itself and the visibility of softball. I think some of that lends to because it's so much more readily available by streaming, especially at the higher level. And in softball, there is some professional softball, but more so Big Ten and College World Series, and the viewership that they're getting and the exposure that they're giving the sport itself lends to, more people knowing about it and getting more involved in it. And at the youth level, is where it's really growing, and that growth continues through the youth level and hits us in the high school. So we're continually growing and getting more kids involved at the high school level, which is fantastic. And I will say that the club scene for softball in the state of Nebraska is really, really strong. We have a lot of girls that go compete collegiately after they're done with their club in their high school. So that's kudos to the amount of exposure that they're giving us outside of the state once they leave as well. But my background, I'm originally from Texas, and then I came up here to wrestle in college, and then I stayed there and coached for nearly 20 years. I was at UNO for 24 years total. And then this job became available kind of timing-wise at the right time. And I applied for it, and it kind of fit into my wheelhouse of running events, being in charge of wrestling and knowing all the ins and outs of wrestling, particularly with weight management. And then my background we hosted 4 different national tournaments when I was at UNO. So putting on events was another feather in my cap when I came in and applied. So all of that kind of fell in place for me to take this job, and I've never looked back. I love doing what I do. I think what we do at the NSAA is, especially at the championship level where we provide the championships, for most of the kids, it's the coolest thing that they'll be a part of athletically in their life. Because even if you go to the collegiate level, unless you're, going to be a professional football player or a large Division I athlete, the fans that you get to play in front of and play in front of your peers, it's unmatched. Like you don't get it as much even at the collegiate level that you do at the high school level. And I will tell you that in the state of Nebraska, high school sports are very important. I mean, outside of Husker football and Husker volleyball, we don't have any professional sports. We don't have professional football, baseball, hockey, soccer. We don't have any of that. So when people are sports and they want to watch sports, they go to the high schools because there's a lot of it. And we're very, very fortunate to have the following in our state that we do. They're passionate, and it's fantastic.
Well, and I like you brought up one thing. Of course, you beat me to it, but of course, former coach at UNO Wrestling, and you said right place, right time. But of course, getting there, it took a moment, right? As far as there was a mental take back of going, man, what's my next step? What's next, right? Things aren't the same. And I only bring this up is because it's so important for people to understand that you can have a step back where you think that you're in the right place, right job, and then boom, something lands on your place at the right place, right time. And it's so important to who you are today as far as being able now to give back to the students in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the story I think that you're alluding to is the fact that we were a very successful wrestling program at the University of Nebraska Omaha, and we had just won our 3rd national title in a row that night, and then it was the 6th title that we won in the last 8 years, and then we get a phone call saying that they're going to drop our program. So your wheels are turning, you're kind of on your heels, but life deals you some blows, and I think that for me personally, I've tried to make the best of it. I feel like I'm in a better place. I'm stronger for it. It's still a sour pill for me to swallow. I'd spent so many years there, and we were so successful, and it's been a part of my, who I am for so long that's tough. But at the same time, I took it, and I think it made me stronger. I think it taught me some things about life, and it's something that I use when I talk to my kids, and something I use when I talk in front of people that, life is about rebounding, and you're gonna be dealt some blows in life, and really to show who you are as a person and the character that you have, it's how you rebound from that and what you do and what you take with it and how you move forward. So I hopefully am setting an example for my own kids that, you can take a serious blow and really rebound from it and still be successful.
Well, and I like that you brought that up. We interviewed we interviewed Coach Day out at Scott Catholic, and that was his issue. He had baseball taken away from him at UNK, and somehow, he's driving home and he's just going through all these thoughts, and then boom, the job ends up landing him at Scott, and now look, he's starting to take a program. All the stuff and development that you've seen since you joining the NSA, what do you think is one of the best feelings or best things that you have been able to get from the NSA experience for yourself? And what's something that you're kind of like, that's still something that I miss? Because, of course, winning a competitive sport, the competition's still there, but now you're working amongst a board that's trying to make sure every sport has their time and every sport gets their recognition. It isn't like you're going, I'm going to take wrestling and it's going to be better than volleyball or it's going to be better than softball. You're trying to excel all these different programs with a team.
Yeah. So I think you hit it on the head. We're trying to excel all of them, and we don't focus on one or the other, but we're all individuals. And to be honest with you, our office is very competitive. So we try to, make sure that we're doing the best that we can for our kids. And really, we have to put that in the front of our minds that this is for kids. It's not about me. It's not about us. It's not about the NSAA. This is about the kids that are participating in our activities, and particularly when we put on our championships, the teams that are there and the experience that we give them. And like I said, for a lot of them, it'll be the experience of a lifetime. It'll be the pinnacle of their athletic life or career. So for us to make that special, that's what gives me satisfaction. And that's one of the things that, selfishly, like I said, I'm competitive and I like to do things wow, hey, let's make this wow. Let's, having you at state softball, that's something new. I'm always, as a director, my personal goal is to try to make something visibly better every year for every one of my championships. And it started with soccer. We got soccer on televised. For the first time when I took over soccer. It was in the works, but I actually got to be the first one that was the director when we did it. First time we televised softball. Again, that was in the works, and we've been working for it as a staff and as an organization, but I was the first one to be able to do that. And I'm not taking credit for that. I'm just saying that I'm fortunate enough to be in that position. So I try to do whatever I can to make it special, but we have limits. We have a budget. We have some constraints and equality that we have to be aware of, and I understand that. But at the same time, I don't feel like I'm doing my job if I'm not pushing to get better every year.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Last year was the first year at UNO for softball. How important was that to get this off the ground, especially when you see football at Memorial Stadium, you see basketball at Pinnacle Arena, you see these sports get that, and I don't know about you, but I really love the venue there at UNO. They have an amazing complex. There's the baseball field right next door where the kids can have that interaction, and then you go with the softball on one side so they can do warm-ups on a field without having to worry about interfering with anything else. And just I think the atmosphere, the number of people that you guys had, what was that all like for you guys, and how important was it for softball to get out of the small town? Nothing wrong with the small town. It's just the attendance isn't where you want it. The eyes on isn't where you want it.
And this is my personal opinion, but people live in a metro area because of the convenience. It's convenient to live in a metro area. You can go to a store really easy. You can find some different restaurants really easy. And it's not necessarily convenient for those people in their mindset to travel all the way out to Kearney or to Hastings, to watch softball, even if they do love it. The diehards still do. And we have great attendance out there, and there's great crowds. But for the casual fan to come in and watch a couple hours worth of softball that, maybe they have a connection or they just love softball, it's a numbers game. You have it in a metro area, you're going to have more of those people. People that live in the Hastings area that just love softball, they probably come to Hastings. But there's just a lot more people in Omaha that probably fit that description and will come watch a game or two. And we had, like you said, we had over 4,000 people come to one day of games, C, B, and A. And one ticket got you into all games. You could stay for all of them. And that, I think, was fantastic. Our attendance, overall, our attendance grew by almost 75% from what it was at our peak at Hastings. And that is a testament to, kind of the dynamics of bringing the finals to a venue like UNO and being able to televise it also. So not only were the people coming to the game itself, but then they were able to watch it. Now, we stream everything through NFHS Network, all those earlier games, and we even did the finals in the past. But now it's more like Women's College World Series. It's a winner take all. It's one game, but who knows? In the future, we may be able to do it like the College World Series, and you have multiple games. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But we have the capability to do it. We have a goal to try to find the best venues to host our state championship. That's why wrestling's in CHI. That's why basketball and volleyball are in Pinnacle Bank, and then the finals in volleyball. What volleyball girl in the state of Nebraska doesn't love playing at Devaney? It's fantastic. And, Memorial Stadium for football. And so that being said, we haven't had a facility. UNO facility is fairly new. So we were on a multi-year contract with Hastings. In fact, we were in such we wanted to do that so bad, we got together with Omaha and Hastings and amended the last 2 years of their contract so that we could do this. And Hastings was accommodating to do that because they understood, and they understood what our goal was of trying to make it a special event, getting in the best venue that we could. Now, we can't host the whole tournament at UNO. It's one field. I mean, we need multiple fields for multiple days, and there's no other venue really that fits what we need than Hastings right now. But I will say that, the bid's coming up after this year's over. We'll have some entities bidding on it, and it might have a different look moving forward. And it might go back to Hastings. I'm not sure. But I think that the finals will definitely be in a venue where we can televise it, and it'll be able to hold, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people.
And you also brought up of the teams that are very important to the area, like you said, the travel ball that's going on. I mean, you get the Nebraska Gold going and competing for nationals. And some of those players are now at a college level and they're coming back. How important is it to keep some of those kids? You guys had Jordy Ball there last year. You had just some of the other – you had one from each class, which I thought was really unique and different, come back, be the initial pitcher for the first pitch, and then just show that you can be on this stage right here and you can also become who these athletes are if you work hard enough. And I think just getting them in that environment and having these athletes come back and give back. I can say from my personal experience of going to multiple events, it's a first in Nebraska that I've seen that. It isn't like I see a former West Side player bring out a football to present the ball. And I'm not saying he couldn't, but those are important to show, okay, you've done some time. Now we're going to show how it all can come back to Omaha. How important was that for you guys last year?
It was really important. I think it was something, like you said, it was unique. We haven't done it in anything else, but it wasn't unique to the sport or in baseball, the same thing, because we've had obviously other people like other, minor leagues or major league have honorary pitchers. And we're going to do it again this year. We have 3 fantastic candidates to do it. Peaches James. I think anybody that knows anything about softball in the state of Nebraska knows who Peaches James is. She's going to pitch out the first pitch for Class A. We have Kalen Jablonski, who was a Scott athlete, pitcher, fantastic ball player, and played at UNL. Peaches James did too, and they set records. They were Big 8, Big 10 athletes of the week, national athletes of the week during their careers there. And then we also have one that just finished at South Dakota State, who was a Class C girl named Tori Kenichi. And she pitched for Wayne, and a fantastic pitcher. All of them had won state titles when they were in high school, and all of them excelled immensely at the collegiate level. So those, I think you hit it on the head where you said they see those girls and they see that they're from Nebraska and they see the accomplishments that they've made outside of the high school realm. And hopefully that's inspiring for them, because we certainly enjoy doing it. I think it's an honor for them to come do it. Hopefully they feel that way. And again, it's unique to baseball and softball, and we're very happy to be able to do it.
Well, before we get into some further stuff about you and what you do for the NSAA, what's the most important information people should know about October 21st for state softball?
So the October 21st is just the final. So there'll be 2 teams for each class. There'll be 1 game each class. You buy 1 ticket, but that gets you in all day. We do clear the seat backs for the particular fans that are going to be there for that game. So we'll start with Class C, and then we'll move to Class B. So I think it's 12:30, 3:30, and 6:30. So we'll go C, B, A again, and then like I said, they'll come watch their team, but maybe they want to come and hang around softball. They love softball, and watch all the games or watch 2 of the 3, whatever that might be. We want to be able to accommodate that. And I just had a meeting with UNO this morning. They're excited about hosting it again. The facility is fantastic. We're really excited to do it. I would say if you haven't experienced it, you should, because it's pretty stinking cool.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that you guys allow DJ K-Dub Omaha to DJ it. It's so fun. It's people. I think since COVID is probably, I've been DJing for about 11 years, and right before COVID, I was starting to get into sports, and then after COVID, I got into sports more between volleyball, basketball, football. I mean, I would put Papio South's in-game DJ. When they had the ESPN out here, when they had their football, it was like Lincoln, and then you guys had me out for softball last year. But people don't understand how important the sound and atmosphere you create matters to these kids, and it's whether it's fun. I know with volleyball, people would be like, "Why'd you play that song?" And if it was a timeout that the Titans took, it's an emotional thing. You play something they don't pay attention to. Then when they come out, you start ramping it up. And it's just mind-blowing how people go, there's actually a way you're doing it. You're not just selecting random songs. I said, sometimes you do. But for the most part, you're playing it with the highs and lows of the game. You're playing with what you're seeing. And then also, thanks to NSAA for allowing me to have access for the sports as well. I do coverage, of course, for the softball while I'm there at state, to keep people updated on what we do. That's the best part that I love is, like you said, it's about getting these athletes seen in any way possible for all the great work and hard work they do. Of course, with the wrestling background, with the history that you have with wrestling, and one of your major credentials is weight management program. When you look across the schools in the area and you look, what is something that you think that you guys are helping with when it comes to the weight management stuff, especially for wrestling? And what's something that you think that we could probably maybe get maybe a little bit of outside help, whether it is more of the directors or just of how important these things are? I only say it because, of course, I just had on Nick Hamilton. His episode released last week, and he was a former Monarch that wrestles for Virginia. And that was one subject we brought up of how important now he knows what he can and can't eat, and he doesn't have to cut weight. But, of course, I've heard wrestling sometimes with high school kids. They're just not taught right in that. How important is this to your title as weight management for the NSAA?
Well, the current weight management system is called the Optimal Performance Calculator. It's an OPC. And several years old, 20-plus years ago, there was some issues with the way people were cutting weight and when they had weigh-ins, and a couple of young men lost their life, which kind of spurred things on with, like, we need to do something as a sport. And to be quite honest with you, at the time, people were like, just leave us alone. We're fine, But when we look back on it now, what we were doing and how we cut weight and the way we treated our bodies was very unhealthy. And really, the weight management program is designed to do what you want to do. And if you need to cut back on some weight, do it in a healthy manner. So we provide resources like weight management guidelines for eating and nutrition. We make that readily available for all of our schools. And I think that understanding the weight management is one thing, but some of the protocols that we put in place took care of the majority of the drastic weight cutting that we did in the past. The first one was the 1 hour weigh-in, because we had night before weigh-ins or 5 hour weigh-ins before, or home weigh-ins where they weren't really paying attention to it. All of that changed. And the 1 hour weigh-in, you can't compete when you're cutting the way we used to cut. You wouldn't be able to compete in an hour. Like, you have to rest your body. I mean, you're so depleted and so dehydrated. UFC guys, they make weight the night before, and they're so, dehydrated and depleted that it takes them that 24 hours before they can go out and compete. So we tried to, not we, but the weight management plan did some things like that. The 1 hour weigh-in was one, and tracking your weight loss. Like, you have to record your weights at the high school level in the state of Nebraska. We record every weigh-in, and every weigh-in gets put into the system, and then it gets calculated how much weight you can lose every week. And you can't lose more than 1.5% of your body weight per week. So if you think about that, for 100 pound guy, you can only lose 1.5 pounds in a week. Well, that's easy. Anybody can do that. But to do it healthy, say a 200-pound guy, he can lose 3 pounds in 1 week. So you manage that, and you do a lot better job of maintaining, and you're not yo-yoing, 10, 15, 20 pounds up and then diving back down to make weight again. That has helped with that. The other thing that I think you asked what we could do better, I think the mentality of our coaches can get better. There's some old school guys that still cut the wrong way. They still want their kids to cut a lot of weight to compete. And I'll be honest with you, I've seen several cases where kids stopped cutting weight and their performance increased dramatically. The cutting weight part of it is, they're not putting fuel in their body. You can have a sports car, but if you don't put any gas in it, it's not going to go anywhere, So
yeah, you can't put that regular ethanol in there. You got to get that better gas.
And you got to do it the right way. And you can't take it all the way down to empty and then put a little bit in and drive 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's all about, education and trying to do it the right way. And the ones that are doing it the correct way excel. And the ones that are not, cutting a significant amount of weight enjoy the sport more. I mean, let's be honest. There's some people that run track, play football, and I'm not dogging those sports. But you know what they say about it? Man, it's fun.
Yeah. And that was what Nick put out there. He just said how great it was just not to have to worry about that weight because you were taught what you need to do. And of course, I mean, people say it all the time. In school, maybe we're missing some money management skills. We're missing sometimes just even the health skills that we're hoping that they could get to. And I really like that you guys have added this management for these athletes. And of course, like you said, I think a great example is hoping the coaches they got to buy in too, because if the coaches don't buy in, I don't think the kids are going to understand how important it is to what they're doing.
Yeah, and I preach that every opportunity I get. Any kind of coaches clinic, anytime I get in front of the coaches specifically, I try to educate them and try to give them some advice on here's what you need to do. You need to pre-test your kids. You need to know where they need to weigh, and you need to get them there early. You can't wait till – and sometimes that's hard. If kids are playing football and they're late into the playoffs, it might take them a while to cut the weight down to where they're normally, because most of the time you're on full feed. You're eating as much as you can during football season. I mean, you're going and blowing and you're eating all the time. And then you want to lose some weight to get to a weight which you would probably normally be at if you weren't eating like a horse during football. But it just takes time. And in order to do that, that's what the management plan is for. So sometimes it takes them, even after wrestling season starts, it takes those football guys, a couple of 3 weeks into the season before they get to where they want to be. But that's just the nature of the beast. And love multi-sport athletes. I think that's fantastic for them. I think we need more of them. But there's some challenges with it too, because if you are good, especially in football, you're probably going to be playing into wrestling practice part of the season.
Yeah, and of course, football coaches don't want you to lose that weight that you put on, the muscle and all that. Wrestling, I think you guys have also made strides there, whether it is the whole state presentation, but also, of course, female wrestling, ladies, girls wrestling. How important is that? And not even important, just the changing through the times. I know that there was, of course, a lot of social media issues, the behind the keyboard typers. Oh, I can't believe they're doing the men or the girls and the boys at the same place and all this. And then they try to say what the girls were doing of crying and all this. And I don't know about you, but you've been around wrestling longer than me, but I could tell you I've seen enough grown men cry for years upon years that it doesn't matter whether you're a female or a male. The sport is a sport, and you guys are bringing in the availability that I think is starting to just explode, if you ask me. I mean, a lot of programs have grown from it, and a lot more athletes are just getting a chance to compete.
Absolutely. It wasn't that long ago that wrestling almost got kicked out of the Olympics, right? I mean, there was some things that needed to change. And during that, then you have COVID. And a lot of people stopped doing activities. A lot of officials got out. A lot of coaches got out. And so we started building back. We're trying to building back. And girls wrestling has been a catalyst for that growth. And if you look at the numbers, the girls' numbers in the state of Nebraska, they have grown exponentially. They have exceeded expectations every year. But if you also look at the boys' numbers during those same years, they are growing. We're at record numbers for boys, too. We've never had this many boys wrestle in the state of Nebraska. So the girls are helping the boys. The girls are helping wrestling in general. And the girls are the fastest growing sport for the NFHS. Girls wrestling is the fastest growing sport for the NFHS and has been for the last couple of years. We went from 4 or 5 years ago to having, 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, we had 6 states that have wrestling. And now we have 45. 45 states in 6 years. So that's a tremendous amount of growth. And for the state of Nebraska, this will be the first year that we have 2 classes. And I heard it all the time. We added the girls to the boys, but at the time they weren't ready for their own tournament. They didn't have the following, they didn't have the numbers, and the girls wanted to experience what the atmosphere was like at the boys championship. I'm biased, but I think it's one of the coolest things we do. It's really cool to have all of those different schools represented. The only other ones like that is kind of track, that they all compete at the same time. Cross country is all there, all classes, both genders. But it's time slots, and they do it, time slots. And so to compete all at the same time like we do in wrestling was unique. Now, we've grown so much on the girls' side that we were forced to separate. Along with that, this is the first year that we're going to have 2 classes of girls. It was a proposal that was submitted by our schools and voted on. So we're going to add a class of girls. And so we'll have that many more qualifiers for girls. Therefore, we're going to have a separate girls tournament, but at the same venue during the same week. So we're going back to the traditional boys tournament, which was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And that's just going to be the boys, similar to the format that we did for years and years. And I'll be honest with you, when I first came in, 14 years ago, wrestling hadn't changed in 20 plus years. The only change that was made was we went from Devaney to Quest Center in Omaha. But then the whole time we were at Quest Center, they did things the same way over and over and over again. And I try to change it up a little bit just because there's excitement for people to go, I wonder what's new this year. I'm excited to see what's going to be this year, instead of like, yeah, it's really cool, I like to go, but it's kind of the same thing. And I'm not. That's just me. That's my mentality. That's my,
Well, like to me, the intros are amazing. Like when you get onto that final match, and of course all the hard work, the way you make them feel, I could only imagine coming out of that tunnel. Like, of course, I've never experienced that, but as a fan sitting there, I can feel the excitement. I can feel the atmosphere. I can feel like, even right now, my hair's going up on my arms, just even thinking of the atmosphere that these kids get to experience. So you added that the females or the girls are going to have their own. What's the information on that? What should we be looking for? And the 2 classes, kind of just a little bit explanation on that of course, that growth.
Sure. So the proposal, the reason we're going to 2 classes was somebody submitted a proposal thinking, let's see what the membership votes on it. And they voted in favor of having 2 classes for girls. And in that proposal, you take, and all of our classifications are done by enrollment. So you take the girls' enrollment for the top 56 schools, and they'll go into A. And all the remaining schools will go into B. Now, we have over 180 schools right now. So 56 of them will be A, and 130 will be in B. Now, that's deceiving because 130, you could have one girl come out for wrestling, and that constitutes a team. So we have 130 schools that have wrestling or teams, because some of them are co-ops. But some of them, when they go to their district tournament, it's not going to be, because there's going to be about, 30, 100, whatever that number is, 35 per district. There's not going to be 35 girls in every weight class. That's just not going to happen. There's a lot of small schools that have wrestling. And if you think about it, the only other sport that those small schools had an option for was basketball. If you didn't play basketball, you didn't really have a winner option, because the only other thing that we have had at the time was swimming. Now we've added bowling, and then that's hitting a whole different demographic of kid. But those girls that were winner, non-basketball players, they really didn't have an option. And it's interesting to see the communities that are really excelling in it. And South Sioux City, we're state champs. Grand Island's way up there. Lexington's really doing really well. Schuyler, so those communities that are not necessarily good in other sports are excelling in girls wrestling, and it's fantastic to see. I heard one of the athletic directors say that the girls that go out for wrestling, they had a hard time getting them to come to school. They were barely passing. It was just kind of like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? They joined wrestling. It changed their life. They have a purpose. They come because they're a part of a team. They get to compete in something that they never competed in before, and their grades got better. They're part of the school more. So it actually helped the entire school. And that was just one example. But it's awesome to hear those kind of stories, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go because it's not done. It's still going to grow.
Well, and I like that you said that because that's another point, like even last week that Nick brought up of the consistency that he has gotten from wrestling is something that he still, to this day in college, has helped him become who he is as far as grades. He's getting the best grades he had because it's a consistency of being involved, being a part of something, and especially if you guys are making it bigger than what it was, right? It's not where, I used to coach football at Omaha South, and I coached Bob Mulligan, which has been the back-to-back girls coach for wrestling. So, and I interviewed him and Reagan Rossiter out of Westside, and just seeing it and understanding that she got to go over to France to wrestle for USA, and then now she's obviously wrestling at college at Chatham State, and just seeing like these athletes have opportunities that were never once a part of that, and you guys are helping make it just a little bit bigger each time. What's the dates on those? Are they going to be like Monday, Tuesday? What do you guys have for that at the CHI?
So we're going to do both classes of girls at the same time. We do 8 mats. We'll do 4 mats of Class A, 4 mats of Class B. That will start on the same week as boys, but it'll start on Tuesday afternoon. It'll go through Tuesday evening. Then we'll start on Wednesday morning, go through Wednesday, and then Wednesday evening at 6:30, we'll have the girls' championships that are going to be televised. So they'll be their own championships. It'll be 2 mats, one for A, one for B, just like the boys, one for each class. And we'll still do all the bells and whistles and all the things that we do for the boys, we're going to do for the girls. And we're excited to be able to do it. And I think that once girls come watch that, and maybe even junior high or younger girls come experience that, my goal is for them to leave saying, I want to do that. I want to be on that stage. I want to be on that mat. I want to be the one that all these people are watching and cheering for.
Well, there's 2 things that I would consider sports that are not NSAA covered and that give an experience of exactly what you just said there. One is show choir, and 2 is powerlifting. I've been to both. I've watched how it picks up kids when they're down. Whether it's a Kiki Hadley out of Central, who at most schools is the one that might get made fun of or might get talked about in a wrong way. But when it comes to powerlifting and she steps on that mat, she is the queen of the powerlifting and everybody wants to be her. Is there a reason that these sports haven't gotten accepted, or and it might be their control? Because I think I might have heard a coach or someone say, we like the control and all that to have. But for me, it's a matter of making sure that people understand how important to get these sports out there so people know, because of those experiences that you talk about where you feel like when I go to show choir, all kids are cheering on the other kids. And I could say it because my kids were from Papio South, so the family and the number of kids that are there at these events are a large number. I think they had to make an extra team one year after COVID, or else they would have lost a bunch of kids. But it was so important to have it that when we go out to a smaller school like Bellevue East, they might not have, but all these kids are up on the stage making those Bellevue East kids feel amazing. Is there a reason these two things, and I'm not saying they're the only ones, there's probably other ones, but to me, it just really hit home to me that I just feel that they're not getting what they need and what they can provide to the student body, just as girls wrestling is.
So if I understand what you're asking why are they not sanctioned by the NSAA?
Yeah, and is that even in the eye or even talked about, I guess?
So we have people coming all the time asking us, why don't you sanction this? Why don't you sanction rodeo? Why don't you sanction bass fishing? Crap shooting, stuff like that. The big one that has been talked about probably a little more than others is lacrosse. But we have a bylaw. But we also have. We have 310 schools. Over 150 of our schools have a 3-grade enrollment of less than 100. So we are dominated by our smaller schools. And really, we have some sports that only have 2 classes or 1 class. Swimming is 1 class. Tennis is only 2 classes. Soccer is only 2 classes. So those, if we started somewhere, it would start with the large schools, and maybe, but that comes in the way of a proposal. Just the same way that girls wrestling was added. It was a proposal. They got voted on by the membership. And sometimes if you look at a small school, they're like, we don't need more. We're already, trying to keep our kids doing what we have already sanctioned. And so sometimes the small schools outvote the big schools, and they don't necessarily have the same mentality about it. But anything can happen. I mean, you say show choir is not sanctioned. We do sanction music. We just don't have a state championship. We have district music where they go compete against basically themselves, and they get a rating. And show choir is a part of the music that we do sanction. So it is somewhat sanctioned. It's just a little different because it's the only one that we sanction that we don't have a championship for. I take that back. Debate is the other one. We sanction debate, but we don't have a state championship for debate. So, but we do have 28 different championships, and really for our population base in the state of Nebraska, that's a lot. I mean, to add more to it, sometimes you're taking away from this one to do this one, and that's not necessarily beneficial for the school. So those are the kind of things that they have to think of when they're voting on it. I will tell you that's a total different demographic of kid that has come to as a proposal and could possibly pass, and is passing in a lot of states, is esports.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I actually cover Iowa Western Community College, their esports, and just some of their events. And of course, I've seen it kind of grow. So that hits hard for me because I guess for someone like myself that just wants to cover these kids no matter what they do, I always just try to let people know of how important, especially esports. And what I really like is the JUCO route and the NSAA, they actually share a lot of what I post because it is just trying to get that knowledge out. And I say it because a lot of kids get told, get off the game, stop gaming, but there is college opportunities. And obviously being a admin for tennis, you understand how important tennis is for people to understand the scholarship opportunities at the next level that just doesn't get used. And it's money, and it's something that they love. And you can, and I can tell you at Iowa Western, from what I've talked with them at the college level for these kids, if you are interested in esports, you get treated like an athlete. You have the same way to go work out. They try to talk to them about working out. You have the same food plans, the same stuff that athletes have. They're trying to really get them to kind of cross mingle and come check out what they're doing. But it's a growing thing. So hearing that the NSAA possibly could have it voted on. And I say it because I've shared Central's. Bellevue University is one of the top. I think he just posted this last week. They're 11th in the country. Really? Just here in Bellevue. So just knowing that these kids have that opportunity, that really hits good right there, Ron. And I greatly appreciate the opportunity that the NSAA has allowed not just myself, but a lot of the people that come and cover the sports for these kids. I know we started for Wired Axcess, the plug and play chain, which the kids are loving because it's not a plastic chain. It's a pretty heavy chain, and we choose a player of the game, and we really look at also just sharing the good things for teams, even if they're not winning. And I say that because some of those athletes get overlooked, especially when they're a part of a team that might not be on that winning thing, but they have the winning edge to possibly get them looked at the next level. And I think what I really like is I hope a lot of the local kids in the state of Nebraska are seeing what a lot of these athletes are doing at the next level, whether it is Will Kyle going to UCLA, you have St. Thomas at USC, you have these kids branching out to Wake Forest, you have Hunter Salas, you have football, you have down in Auburn, you have Oklahoma. I think it's so impactful for these kids to understand and see that, yes, Nebraska is great, and we do want you in state, but you can get the opportunity outside of state after you get your education in state for high school. Seeing those athletes have to be important to the growth of just the local area. And I think the success that we're seeing with these athletes, whether it's football, basketball, golf, tennis, I mean, you have the golf that has even taken off where Scott got to play with his son that used to go to Westside. Like seeing those things playing on the next level, it's awesome to be able to share it, but also know that it started right here in this state. It started your guys' support of making sure and giving, I think, more than people know. I could tell you what I've seen from seeing Jeff and you guys run around at these events. It's not just show up and go. I mean, there's so many things beforehand, whether it's TV time, whether it's people covering it, there's a lot that you guys put in it. So I greatly appreciate you guys at the NSAA and everything that you guys have done. And once again, October 21st, the championship day. And then we go right back into volleyball championship, football championship, and it rolls from there. I mean, once softball starts, everything else is like a domino. So
yeah. Actually, the week of softball. So next Monday, Tuesday is state golf for girls. So girls. Yes. Then we have softball. Then tennis will overlap softball and go into the next week, and then we'll have cross country. And then, I mean, it's like you said, it's a snowball, and it gets pretty hectic, around our office this time of year.
Well, once again, remember to like, share, follow, all that great stuff. And we have the NSAA director here, Ron Higdon. Once again, I greatly appreciate your time and your story. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Wired Axcess Podcast. Once again, a Hurrdat Sports production. See ya.